Hello, and welcome back to rLounge. Actions have consequences. That's the first rule of life. Today on rLounge, we learn the second rule, and that is, you are the only one responsible for your own actions. This is part 5 of a long saga. If you haven't watched the previous parts, go check them out and come back. An update. I have an update once more on the whole saga. I don't know if more updates will follow, but if something happens, I will post here. The good news is that most family members have stopped bothering me and hubby. Eldest has a social media account that we go through together, and he has received some nasty things on that. Eldest blocked them, reported them, and thanks to our dear lawyer friend who sent some letters, it got relatively quiet once again. Those without a no contact order in place have suddenly reached out more often. People hubby or I haven't spoke to with in years contact us more often. We keep it polite and pleasant. Entitled cousin had to pay several fines, damages, and has 2 years of probation. He tried to threaten us again. We told him Frou would love to meet him again. Blabbermouth knows in which town we live now. Entitled cousin seems to have told her. We have seen her around town. We hope she stays away as per the no contact order. The bad news is about my cousin with a sick daughter. SD will be the sick daughter, and DSD will be my cousin, her dad. MSD will be the mom, wife of my cousin. She was eventually allowed to go home for a while, although with a lot of equipment, medication, and such. But hey, everyone was happy sick daughter was home for a little while. Since the beginning of the pandemic, sick daughter quarantined and rarely went out. Same goes for the dad of sick daughter and mom of sick daughter. They hardly allowed visitors over. Their elder children quarantined, tested themselves before coming over, and wore masks when they came over, etc. They took every measure to heart. They were warned that COVID could be the death of her. The times they went out were times that they knew places would be quiet and people were scarce. They took some sort of subscription to get groceries delivered to their house on a weekly basis. The driver, bless his heart, found out about the situation and even went as far as to disinfect and mask himself, even though he only put the groceries on the door. He also wiped the handles of the crates and bags. Dad of sick daughter and mom of sick daughter managed to work from home the entire time. It was hard on them. I will cut the story short. Sick daughter died. She contracted COVID, and due to her already weak immune system, she passed away. She didn't contract it from her parents or siblings. They tested regularly just to be on the safe side. The likable source? A relative of mother of sick daughter. The guy was someone who didn't take COVID seriously. He went someplace, got symptoms afterwards. He went to get himself tested because his boss didn't want him at a job site without a negative test. Relative works in construction. Well, wouldn't you know, he tested positive. Health services explained what he had to do. His boss did the same. Boss would keep paying him. Relative had to stay home and quarantine. Back to the story. Mother of sick daughter and dad of sick daughter had troubles with some leak. Sick daughter's room was next to the bathroom, and they had been seeing some wet spots in her bedroom wall. Figuring it was a leak, they called this relative, asked him if he had time. They explained the situation and they asked him to take the precautions. He said he would take the precautions. Told him he had tested negative on a test. Maybe he thought that since he couldn't work, he would do this instead, earn some extra cash. He had to come into sick daughter's room to get some things done and took his mask off several times to cough, saying it was so hot and he needed fresh air. He was reminded every time to get that thing back on. He was asked to leave and not to return after a couple of times. Work wasn't finished, but they didn't care. The leak was found and taken care of with a temporary fix. A couple of days later, sick daughter got very sick and had to be transported to the hospital. She tested positive for COVID. She died there. To say people are devastated is an understatement. Dad of sick daughter called me in tears a couple of days after her passing. His tears were enough to know what had happened. In the background, I could hear mother of sick daughter screaming. It turns out she was calling her relative about her daughter's death, and he informed her that he was positive the time he was there to help him fix things. My cousin said goodbye quickly and went to deal with that situation. I don't know what happened afterwards. Only thing I know is that mother of sick daughter cursed and yelled at him for lying, whilst knowing that sick daughter was sick and COVID was a real threat to her. We did get an invite for her online funeral service. Hubby and I both attended. We sent some flowers and a card. This was almost 2 months ago. Dad of sick daughter video called last night. This wasn't a man anymore, more of a shell. Still so lost after the loss of his daughter, his only daughter. His wife? They're not doing great at all. It was heartbreaking and devastating to see them. We talked about the funds. They wanted to thank us anyway. We told them we wanted to donate the amount for research. They were glad we wanted to do so. So that's the update. Sooner than I would have wanted and not with the news I had hopes of sharing. Stay safe, people, and I hope you have a good and, above all, healthy holiday season. I'm so sorry to hear this, OP. This is horrendous. It's tragic to hear that certain precautions were set in place because of her being immunocompromised, and yet, with people who didn't take it as seriously, she unfortunately contracted COVID. It definitely adds to the selfishness and disconnectedness that we've seen in your family throughout your journey. Please extend our condolences to your cousin. Update: the inside of a hospital. How Entitled Cousin lost his job and how Blabbermouth has the honor of meeting Frou-Frou. Dear people on Reddit, I thought that no more updates would be needed as the peace seemed to have returned. It wasn't for long, however. Last time I gave an update on the situation with my cousin. Now I write this as it is Entitled Cousin and Blabbermouth related. For the people not familiar with Blabbermouth and Entitled Cousin drama, I refer you to my previous posts. Hang on tight for another long update. It all starts with Entitled Cousin and Blabbermouth staying in touch with each other. They kept complaining and apparently blaming all their misfortune on me. I am the source of their problems, and if I had just done what I was supposed to do, then none of all the bad things would have happened. Entitled Cousin then had the bright idea that I should be punished. So what did they talk about? Well, it put me in the hospital. Entitled Cousin had some friend of his follow me. Since I don't work the regular office hours, it took me about 3 weeks before I noticed the same person following me around. I got scared as I have been followed in the past. Nothing came of it in the end, but then it made me vigilant. I took some precautions to be sure, made the reports with law enforcement, and asked our nice neighbor and his wife, NN and NW, if he could keep an eye out. They would. Nice neighbor has experience as a PI. Law enforcement specializes in training for police dogs and such. It happened about 2.5 weeks before Christmas. I was walking on the street talking on my phone when Entitled Cousin and that buddy of his dragged me in a quiet street and proceeded to beat me. In a lull, I managed to hit them where men tend to hurt a lot, add some blows where I could before I set off an alarm with the volume of a ship's horn to alert people and do my best to get away. Where I'm from, civilians aren't allowed to carry guns, tasers, or stun guns like in the US, so save the great gun talk. Police and ambulance came. Reports were made, the whole shebang. I was brought to the hospital, and the damage, a lot of bruises, 6 broken ribs, a broken wrist, and some bruising to organs. I'm doing alright. I had to stay for a little while as there are some concerns about my lungs, liver, and kidneys. Now, who is wondering where Blabbermouth is in this story? Don't worry, I'll tell you. To preface, in the time we have lived in this neighborhood, nice neighbor and neighbor's wife have become friends of me and my family. They both know what has happened, know about the money, and have provided friendship, sets of extra eyes, and a dog for my children to fawn over. Nice neighbor and neighbor's wife don't have children, not their choice, and have become another aunt and uncle to my children. The children love nice neighbor and neighbor's wife and are Frou-Frou's biggest kid fans. Kids, neighbor's wife, and nice neighbor, just a bit, were begging for a sleepover with them. So after quarantine, tested negative on PCR tests and such, nice neighbor and neighbor's wife and Frou-Frou had my children over. Blabbermouth found out where my kids were. I think she has been following them. And on the day that Entitled Cousin and his buddy were beating me up, she went to them while they were outside and tried to convince them to come with her. When they refused, she grabbed the youngest and tried to drag him with her. Bad move, Blabbermouth. Frou-Frou needed his walk, and my children took him for that walk. Nice neighbor was around, but not close enough to intervene swiftly. There was no need. Frou-Frou did. The moment she tried to drag my youngest away, Frou-Frou came sprinting towards them and started barking his head off, growling when he wasn't. Nice neighbor heard his dog, saw who was there with my kids, and called the cops, while running towards the situation. A little while later, Blabbermouth got to quality test the backseat of a police vehicle. According to Nice Neighbor, she was behaving like a Karen. Hope I used the term right. Telling everybody that was in the vicinity of how Nice Neighbor should be arrested for having a vile and dangerous dog, and that she didn't do anything wrong. She's out on bail and charged with attempted child abduction and breaking of the no contact order. Entitled Cousin and his buddy also had bail set and paid it along with some nice charges. As to what Blabbermouth was thinking, I don't know. I know that Entitled Cousin's idea was to beat me into submission. Hubby had a not-so-nice chat on the phone with Entitled Cousin's mummy as she called him and asked if we could drop the charges. Turns out that Entitled Cousin's boss fired him. It seems that he had some disciplinary action going against him already, and this was the final straw in his boss's eyes. Entitled Cousin got to his work, only to be led into the office to meet with his resignation papers. We found out where his whole bow to the will of the family crap came from. Mummy dearest. She basically told hubby that if I had done what they asked, then nothing bad would have happened. I was from outside of the family. So was she, married to an uncle of hubby. So I should do as I was told. I just had enough time to get some snacks and a drink to listen to the sweet sounds of him going ballistic. It was lovely and scary to hear. I took the phone when he took a breather and told her she had heard what we had to say and the whole spiel of contact my lawyer, harassment, yada yada. Click and block. She hasn't called since. Note, entitled cousin, now, had a good job that paid well. His wife also works and they are able to pay the bills, save some as well, and have some extra to spend. He and his wife and family have a comfortable life. It's not like they are in dire straits with debts. So for people commenting that he must be desperate for money, he isn't. After this incident and a couple of attempted break-ins, a neighborhood watch was formed. We gave the people involved a photograph of Blabbermouth and of entitled cousin. Told them only that we had no contact orders against them and asked them to call law enforcement if they were spotted in the neighborhood. All in all, we had a nice Christmas and New Year's Eve. We are doing as well as we can be. I am still sore and have to go to the hospital for checkups. Hubby and I are getting progressively concerned since entitled cousin and Blabbermouth are not deterred by the piece of paper that states no contact order. Moving again is out of the question. When hubby and I were talking one night while the kids were in bed, eldest had come downstairs and overheard us. He was adamant that he didn't want to move. His reasons were that if they did this and we would move again after each escalation, we would have to keep moving. He felt safe in this home and with Frou-Frou, neighbor's wife and nice neighbor, in the vicinity. The other two agree when we talk to them in the morning. Kids are shaken, but doing relatively well. Due to what happened, we are also looking into therapy for all of us. The youngest is quite shaken, but for now is thinking more of how cool it was that Frou-Frou protected him and how Blabbermouth was trying to climb a car. Eldest understands what has happened a bit better and is more fearful. Nice neighbor and neighbor's wife have offered Frou-Frou for sleepovers so that the kids feel safer. We are also thinking about getting our own Frou-Frou. Nice neighbor has already offered to help in the purchase and training of the dog. Hubby is frantic with worry about what might have happened and what entitled cousin might try in the future. We are also going to do some research in how to protect ourselves further. We are talking with law enforcement, our dear lawyer friend, and other people to see what is possible in terms of the law and without turning our neighborhood into a heavy security prison or something like that. So that's that. It's unfortunate that people can't take responsibility for their actions and the choices they've made in life. They like to blame others, as if you making a life for yourself was their issue all along. Wrong. If they had been decent human beings and had been living their best lives as their most genuine and best selves, this would never have happened. Losing their jobs and having people talk about them in town is due to the actions that they made themselves. This has nothing to do with you, and I'm so sorry that they've put you and your family's lives in jeopardy now. Let's see what happens next. A good update. I didn't think I would come back with an update so soon. Grab the snacks and drinks, turn on the music, and dance with me. Or more for me as my ribs still hurt. Entitled cousin and Blabbermouth have been arrested and are now finding out how the jail looks from the inside. Hubby and I were both called by them, begging us to drop the charges. With this, they broke the no contact order and the bail order. We got everything recorded and then called law enforcement immediately, along with dear lawyer friend. They were arrested. Just received the news. Happy butt wiggle for me. I'm joining in on the butt wiggle. Hopefully this really opens their eyes to the fact that actions have consequences, major ones. If they don't learn from this, I'll be absolutely shocked. There may not be hope for them. What do you guys think? As always, thank you for joining us today on rLounge. Before you go, be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. If you have something you want to say regarding today's content, share that with us in the comments below. See you next time. Lo.